Second. Now what is? Yes, second floor was fine. Yeah.
Nice. Pretty good. Nope. That's far out.
So we do 15 by.
Yeah, I saw that. Wasn't sure. I'll put it in.
Yeah.
I prefer. But
It's
even
really
in the way in the TDC permits that were there, that kind of word.
So we asked that city secretary. What type of? Oh, yeah, I guess. How come, what's the relationship? Do gates even require a city? Or they see those?
Yeah, so the business owner, let's see. EBC fine office. It's state, it's, let's see, issued by the city, it's taken by. EBC.
So we have. Change. Someone else. No.
Yeah. Oh.
That's Commissioner. Yeah. Hello, how are you? Nice to see you. Been busy?
10-3 nights.
Yeah. Did you see our photo from the National Voter Registration Day? They did a fabulous job there at Plaza. They did it. They did. It's still going today. 12:30. Yeah, oh, yeah. Yes, access, yeah, there you go. Oh, Miss Marina, we have mayor's thing signed. To give it to Laura or Rachel. Forum. Testing, testing. Mayor, may we call the special work session to order?
Yes, please.
Pursuant to Chapter 551, Title 5 of the Texas Government Code, of the Texas Open Meetings Act, notice is hereby given that the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, in accordance with Article 5, Section 12 of the Charter of the said city, will convene a special work session on September 16, 2025 at 11:35 a.m. In the City Commission chambers that is located on the second floor of the Brownsville City Hall, Old Federal Building, located at 1001 East Elizabeth Street, Brownsville, Cameron County, Texas, 78520. May I proceed with the roll call?
Yes, please.
Starting with Mayor John Cowan,
Present.
Commissioner Pedro Cardenas, Commissioner Gustavo De Leon, Commissioner Nareth Galantzi, Commissioner Tino Villarreal,
Present.
Commissioner Linda Macias, Commissioner Brian Martinez.
Present.
Perfect. We have a quorum present, and the next item is the work session. Item number 1 is a presentation and discussion regarding the sign regulations within the city of Brownsville.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, Commissioners. So this is a presentation to give you, obviously, a recap of everything that has transpired related to signs, billboards, pylon signs, all types of signs within the city. And it's been a project that has taken almost a length of 3 years. This item, or this ordinance, 2022-235.102, was originally presented on December 6th, 2022. And actually, the inquiries or questions, the conversation about signs started a little bit sooner than the actual presentation of this ordinance. So City Commission requested to review existing regulations to provide additional flexibilities for business exposure, to limit or to look at regulations that were limiting the entry into the billboard advertising market, and again to provide an equal opportunity for maximum sign exposure. The ordinance was revised and presented as a work session item based on the feedback that was originally provided. It was once again presented on May 16th of 2023. The purpose or the framework of the ordinance was to create new permissibility based on zoning, traffic intensity, land use intensity. And basically what this means is that wherever there's more traffic, wherever there's more intense uses, usually zoning designations or zoning districts are higher or of more intensity. And therefore, the sign exposure that's required for businesses is higher. As a result, and as per Commission's request, a sign inventory was done just to have an idea as to how many signs existed in the city, not only billboard signs, but also on-premise pylon signs. At that time, there were 110 billboard signs. There were 1,090 pylon signs. And in total, there were 1,200 signs along major thoroughfares. And this is a combination of billboard and pylon. So the adopted version, because it was an evolving document and there was different feedback provided from when it was originally presented in December of 2022 until its adoption on August 1st of 2023. The final version established new review parameters for a billboard pilot program. That's when we initiated or began the discussion on allowing billboards through a pilot program. And in conjunction with resolution number 2023-120, this opened the pilot program officially on October 17th, 2023 through April 17th, 2024. However, due to concerns of some applicants, the commission voted to extend the pilot program to May 31st, 2024 to cover applications that were initiated within the period between the original end date and May 31st. So again, through this same ordinance, new permissibility criteria was also established for pylon signs. Everything remained the same: permissible elevation, permissible area. However, the only parameter that was changed is where pylon signs were permitted. Originally, they were only permitted in regional center zoning. However, this was expanded to traditional neighborhood mixed use, traditional neighborhood corridor, commercial corridor, light industrial, and high industrial. And again, to provide the history of what went into the provisions of the billboard, we removed the 3-for-1 rule. Billboards were permitted on zoning designations such as agriculture, traditional neighborhood corridor, commercial corridor, regional center, light industrial, and high industrial, but only on highways and major thoroughfares. The minimum area was 32 square feet per side and a maximum area of 700 square feet per side, a maximum of elevation of 75 feet, and only one property, only one sign per property frontage on a highway or major arterial. The spacing was going to be measured linearly in the same direction of the thoroughfare being analyzed. And these, again, were going to be the parameters for review during the pilot program, again, from October 17th, 2023 to March 31st, 2024. And these were reviewed by the commission. For permitted illumination, the billboard signs were allowed to have, however, they were subject to at least 1,000 hours of public service announcements as requested by the commission. For pylon signs, again, the original provisions are shown at the top, and again, everything remained the same. The original zoning designation in which they were permitted was regional center. Now the updated versions, the updated provisions at the bottom, it basically shows that this expanded into the other zoning designations that were mentioned. So the reason behind the expanded permissibility of pylon signs into other zoning designations stemmed from a request that was brought forth to us by Texas Southmost College around December 2022, when the sign conversation started. They requested an on-premise pylon sign with the digital message component on their property. Now, their property was at that time zoned, and it still is, zoned traditional neighborhood mixed use. And if you recall, as I mentioned, the only zoning designation that allowed pylon signs was regional center. So in order to be able to accommodate this request, the previous commission proposed a text amendment to expand the permissibility of on-premise pylon signs to other zoning designations. And so these updated provisions became established through the previously mentioned ordinance 2022-235.102 on August 1st, 2023. And that's when other zoning designations were able to have this type of sign. And here we're just showing the zoning map of and the current zoning designation of the TSC property. As a result, and probably why this conversation started, there's a sign by the expressway located at 625 Expressway 77 South Frontage for a law firm. The current zoning designation is commercial corridor, and the sign type is an on-premise pylon sign with changeable copy. The width of it is 34.58 feet with a height of 17.7 feet. The total area, the resulting area of the cabinet is 605.15 square feet, and the elevation or the overall height of the structure is 55 feet. So because of the amendment that was done, this property was, it was made possible for this property to establish this pylon sign on their premises. After the approval of ordinance 2022-235.101 and at the closure of the billboard pilot program, we needed to memorialize the closure and once again prohibit the billboard signs through an amendment to the original ordinance. And so we did that through ordinance number 2025-235.102A. And again, basically, it was to memorialize the conclusion of the pilot program, to prohibit billboard signs, and establish and regulate illumination standards as per the lighting study that was requested and that was done with the third-party consultant, Friesen Nichols. So the applicability of this ordinance extended to all billboards and signs. And this was the existing text that permitted the billboard signs on properties. With the adopted text amendment, it basically repealed that section of the ordinance and that officially closed the pilot program and eliminated the permissibility of billboards. This section, subsection 5.3.4A5, is what established the illumination standards that originated from the lighting study, again, that was performed by Friesen Nichols in collaboration with staff. And again, the section was repealed, and on May 6th, 2025 is when this ordinance was approved by the commission. Any questions?
Yes. So, thank you for the presentation. So basically, the way that sign that you alluded to in the highway, that one right there, so that was based off of an amendment that was made
Yes,
to an ordinance? When was that amendment made?
on August 1st, 2023.
August 1st?
Yes.
What was the work session? You had a work session and discussion. How far back did that go?
The original presentation was on December 6th, and then there was a work session on May 16, 2023. And in that period between May 16th to the adoption on August 1st is when we performed the lighting study and did additional edits based on feedback that was provided at this work session on May 16th.
No, I remember the May 16th. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out, was in August 1st, when that got adopted, was that a consent agenda item?
Yes, August 1st was a consent agenda item. The public hearing was in July.
So currently, what are the existing regulations for private billboards?
There are no billboards allowed in the city any longer. There's private pylon signs that are large, that are allowed along expressways. And so I think the updated provisions that you see on the bottom, so before it was only allowed in one zone, which really limited the amount of large pylon signs that you saw in the city. but it was expanded, the number of zoning districts that allowed this type of large sign along the expressway was expanded to allow other zoning districts. And so if you go to the picture of the law office sign. So they're in, what zoning district are they on? Oh, commercial
Commercial
corridor. So that zoning district, it's in the new expanded, not new, it was expanded back in 2023. It's within that expanded zoning district. And so they're allowed an on-premise, which is private digital pylon sign that's as big in size. It's a little bit, it's probably as big as, or it can be as big as a billboard. So that's the difference.
Correct.
So if a business tomorrow wants to put one exactly like this on any commercial corridor, can they?
Yes.
So the question is if the commission wants to, if that list of zoning districts was too much, was too expanded, we can contract down and reduce it. It's always like everything, you change the code because you get concerns and you want to expand it, but maybe what we can do is reduce the districts that it's allowed in, that way you have less. So that's a way to limit it. It's just like whenever you change the code, you don't see the effects of that code until maybe years later. So if that's something that the commission wants to consider, you can also consider limiting the square footage of an on-premise pylon sign to not be as big as a billboard and digital. So there's different ways that you can, that we can limit if there's a concern with visibility along the expressway of these large signs.
Yeah, I'm just asking questions because I wasn't here December 2022 or in the work session that happened in May of 2022. I mean, 23, May of 23. And if it was in consent in August, shame on me for being in my second meeting as commissioner and not understanding that a code was being changed. But now that this code does exist, I was part of the other meetings that we had when we talked about the lumens, and I went with you, Martin, to go check on that. My concern with this is that in the meetings I have been privy to or part of, there used to be like a radius of the reason I've always been against billboards, I'm not against billboards, I'm against sign pollution, right? Like I drive right away through San Benito, and that's a completely different highway than our highway. That's a billboard at every exit and between every exit. I go to Laredo, and that's billboard city, right? Like it's just everywhere. Every commissioner here has the right to vote however they want. I don't like sign pollution. My concern is there a radius? Because if, let's just say, for example, the next business down the street, the new Emilia's restaurant that's opening right before that, if they wanted to put that same type of pylon sign, could they?
They potentially could if they have the right zoning, yes. And if they have sufficient frontage as well.
Correct. Like, let's say they still had those 20 feet. They could technically put one there, and then Duran's, like right next door, could put one there. And then the Dental Street, if they potentially had that sign, could put one there. Technically.
Right.
Okay.
And just to clarify,
There's no, I mean, my question was, there's no radius, because on the commercial signs, right, we did have a radius, which I do believe that the study was done to, like, minimize the radius. That's what I was against. That's what I voted against from a commercial standpoint for Lamar and companies like that. We had like a certain radius along the highway and a certain different radius along non-highway, and how the proximity of one billboard to the other. But what we're saying for pylon signs on premise, there is no radius. and they can go all the way to 75, 85 feet.
Right,
This one's 55, thank God, but it could go 30 feet higher and actually be a little bit bigger.
yes.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. In the billboard pilot, you had a certain distance between one and the other. And in this case, it would, if it's, has the right zoning, the right linear frontage, they can do it by right.
Correct. So every business along the highway can do one, technically, as long as they
Like the
have.
code reads now. but
Correct.
you can- you
No,
can
I'm
you
with
can
it. I mean,
modify.
I definitely, I'm just asking the questions because, you know, then it becomes, if we radius that, I'm just thinking out loud, right? If we radius that, then it's first come, first serve, and then it ruins the other businesses. And then there's some business that goes, how come I couldn't put it? Well, you weren't first to strike. There's a lot of thoughts in my brain. I just needed to know what the code was and how currently, what could potentially happen along the commercial corridors of Brownsville, Texas.
Question, what about properties that have a sign up, but are they grandfathered in if the sign is already up and they can just go in there later on if a business moves in, redo their sign? Is that another option for these business owners or business property owners?
So
Ground-
I would say those signs would be grandfathered in. And depending on the business use type, there would be a period of time. If another business comes in that's similarly situated, then they would have that grandfathering apply to them. Now, if, let's say you have a restaurant where you have a big sign, so much time has passed, it's not used, we would have to relook at that. But there is a period of time, but generally they would be grandfathered in.
That's if the property already has the sign in the air.
Right, correct. And I think we also have, and correct me if I'm wrong, Martin, because most ordinances have this in place, but if there is, like, let's say a hurricane and destruction, they would be
Yes.
able to rebuild it if there's a certain percentage, if it's legal non-conforming. And so most instances, it would be grandfathered in, and they'd have an opportunity to repair their signs.
What if it happens like the business changed, but the a structure still existed and then like it gets rusted or something and they want to fix it? And are they grandfathered in, like they can
Correct.
replace it?
They would be able to make repairs to it as well.
I have a question. How popular are these electronic on-premises pylon signs?
For on-premise businesses, they're not very common because usually you want a digital copy or a changeable copy if you want to advertise something outside of your business, not your business itself. So usually they'll just have a vinyl cabinet that doesn't change. The most we've seen, I mean, this is one of the most recent ones that we saw that has a continuous changeable copy. But the most previous to this, what we had seen was maybe the weather, like a weather update or just the time, but that's it. This one does have graphics and animations.
I think that's really for me, the core of this issue that we have is that this billboard or this pylon sign is functioning like electronic billboard. That's something that we wanted to, regulate.
Right, so here it does resemble, the size and the elevation does resemble a billboard. But we did send court enforcement out there last night. They are advertising on premise. There's no evidence of off-premise advertising. However, what they are in violation in is the illumination.
Yeah,
They took a reading and it was 4,000 lumens. It's probably 10 times over. So that's something that we will have to address with them or contact them because they're way outside of the established parameters.
I think it is very distracting. that sign in particular. And then there's another one, I think the J. Gonzalez. firm.
Yes.
That one's very, very bright as well.
Yes.
Very striking at night.
And I do believe there's some, sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
I just do believe that there's other on-premise signs that also have other businesses on there as well in the city. And they're pylon signs.
Got a question. How many other pylon signs, billboard signs, how many permits are out there waiting to be put up on that, on the highway corridor? I mean, do we have a number of how many more permits that are out there just waiting to be put up?
Well, for pylon signs, we can't really say because there wasn't any limiting factor. They come on a day-to-day basis. The number's always changing. What we can say is for billboards, there's 14 pending because that's what was approved by the commission during the pilot program.
Question is, do you have a list of the large digital on-premise signs in the queue right now on the expressway, similar to the attorney's office that you know of? I know it's like, we can come back if there is a certain amount, this is a work session, so we may not have all the information. So we can come back to see if there is something in the building permit queue.
Yeah, because
But they're expensive, so I don't know how. So for example, the examples that we have is TSC, which had their identification. It's unique, right? Because it's a university, right? Or a community college. And then you have the attorney's office. But we can, this is a work session, so we can come back and let you
Yeah,
know if
and-
there's any in the queue. There may or may not be, I don't know. The staff can also look at, limiting those, reducing them down. And if we're already seeing non-compliance, such as, last night that code enforcement went out there and come back with recommendations.
Yeah, and I think if I understood Mr. Commissioner Tino's question or I just don't think we need one sign 50 yards from another, then 50 yards from another and 50 yards from another. I mean, that would just, I don't think that looks good for the city. I don't know. Then again, I don't know if that's what we want for our only expressway coming down to Brownsville. I mean, but then again,
Well, I mean, I think
it's a
companies,
workshop.
businesses want signage, right? They want visibility. The question is, does it has to be that size and that height, right? Can,
Yeah, I agree. I just think, I mean, if the one we're talking about right now is 605 square feet, the maximum is 630 square feet, so it can be bigger than the one that's out there. And currently, the one that's out there is 55 feet elevated, and it could be 85 feet elevated. Now, my question, and just going back again, sorry, but I just wasn't here. Were those max areas and max elevations part of the amendment?
No,
How do we
the
come-
elevations were never changed.
So that was
the-
always in the
Right.
standard?
Correct.
Is that the standard in every other city?
most cities, it is not uncommon to have higher and bigger signs along expressways. I think the difference between Brownsville, we have like a lot of them that are ground, or sometimes you have expressways that you have like, two highways, a higher height. And so it is not uncommon to have taller, larger signs along expressways in general. But I think the difference here is that we probably could have extended it to a few districts and not included so many, right? Districts where it would allow for that in different zones. That's the difference between, I think it was only RC, regional commercial. And then and TSC had a specific zoning classification that they wanted a higher sign. Maybe it should have an option could have just been 2 or 3 zoning districts. But I don't know, during the work session, commission at that time may have requested, make it equitable for all zoning districts along the corridor. Now, I'm paraphrasing, I don't know, we can go and see the video of what was discussed during that work session because staff takes direction from that initial work session, Commissioner, that you were not at. we'd have to review to see what direction staff received at that time in December of 2022.
Yeah, I would like to, I mean, just know, because I wasn't part of it, the reasoning behind it. Again, I'm not opposed to businesses. I'm not business friendly. I just see that there's a potential, you know, there's opportunities for a lot of, they're expensive. Not everybody's going to afford them. But there's opportunities, especially if we're not regulating what they're putting on there. Because there are other businesses currently that promote other businesses on their premise.
I think we only have 3 code enforcement officers. That's how many we have.
I
We
get it.
are trying to work with ordinance enforcement to kind of expand that. You know, and so
And
what we do is also regulate. So we ask the public if there's signs that are being, you know, is it an on-premise sign that is advertising an off-premise sign? Then they need to report that, and we need to go out there and request that they come to compliance.
Totally in agreement. Not, my whole point is that I understand our restrictions. And so what I'm saying is, if the door is open for more of these signs to be out there, that just puts more of a burden to have to hire more people to start regulating a lot of these signs.
And also, just to clarify before perhaps we close the conversation, the area of the sign is not open to have a max of 630 feet. Yes, the maximum is 630 square feet. However, the area is calculated by the amount of frontage that the property has. So if the property only has frontage of 100 feet on the, if they only have 100 feet of property frontage, then that would be multiplied times 3, because the ordinance says 3 square feet per linear foot of street frontage. And so that would be, let's say, hypothetically, 100 multiplied by 3, 300 square feet. That would be the maximum area for that particular example.
Yeah, I'm with it. I mean, I also believe, then I don't know how much frontage they own, because that's a really small law firm and that's a really big sign.
Yeah.
Like the building itself is pretty small.
In their case, they had 221 feet of frontage.
So from what I'm hearing, we want to see what was the intent in the first work session, but also look at possibly limiting them to not encourage too much visibility impact on the expressway. And so we can come back with a proposal or various options that we can, you all can give us direction on. That's
I
okay.
mean, that's what
And there's different zoning districts, so we can say, okay, this area has this zoning, this area has this zoning, you know, what are we seeing? Maybe by taking away some of the zoning districts, there is that, as Commissioner saying, radius in itself, but we can do more research on that.
And I would also appreciate a little bit of research, like in cities like ours, not population wise, I'm talking, like you said, we don't have the upper level, lower level. What is a good, adequate for pylon on-premise signs for their maximum height, right? Or to be and maximum size of max area.
Okay, we can do that. Let's do that. And then Thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
Okay, item number 2 is a presentation and discussion regarding the campaign finance ordinance.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Commission. I was asked to present a quick update on the municipal campaign finance ordinance. And then, of course, we have a few members that actually went through this process recently. And so at the time of adoption for this ordinance, we did talk about, you know, lessons learned from the particular election that was upcoming, and if there's any need for changes to it. Next slide. while getting the slides up for you.
Yeah, we received the PowerPoint right now, so.
Right. Essentially, just so that you know, McAllen, at the time of the adoption of this current ordinance, and I'm going to go real quick because I don't want to lecture you all. I want you to tell me what you want to see. McAllen, they had limits of 10,000 for mayor and 5,000 for city council, city commission for us. And what happened in that particular city is there was a grassroots effort to have a charter election. And they, through a charter election, they narrowed down those expenditure limits to $500 per individual, including the companies or political action committees. And so you can see from this slide, this is what we had presented. And so what I've done to this slide is I've updated it for this presentation. And so not much changes as far as contribution limits in Austin or San Antonio, Houston, or Dallas. McAllen had that charter election to where it's very, very, very narrow and strict, 500. Two changes that happened with the cities that we looked at when we adopted the ordinance was San Antonio and Austin. San Antonio recently in 2025, they have removed the backup that's required for campaign finance ordinance. And so with the reports, kind of like what we have adopted, they were required to turn in bank statements and copies of checks. They have removed that requirement from their ordinance. With Austin, Austin has gone through a couple of lawsuits with some individuals that were running for city council in their cities. There's two cases, Zimmerman and I'm going to butcher the name, Zerden. In both of those cases, first with Zimmerman, they had a blackout period of 6 months before you could start fundraising for your campaign. So you couldn't start until a particular date, and that was a 6-month window. That was struck down. The city then went to a year. You couldn't fundraise a year before the actual election started. And then that was struck down as well. The interesting thing about Austin is their campaign finance limits are based on CPI. So they do increase based on the CPI changes, but they are codified by the charter. So that city had a charter election that included those limits. But what Austin has an additional is they do have a voluntary program, and different PACs contribute to this fund, and the candidates submit and sign to a contract that they're going to agree to additional restrictions. And if they do so, then they are allotted funds from the fund that is basically used to collect from different individuals and companies. And that is one way that a person can finance their campaign. And so that is a unique thing that Austin does. It is something that other states do. But in Texas, Austin is the only city that has that actual fund where people are able to receive funds for their campaign. Next slide. This is what we had showed at the time of adoption. Wanted to show the numbers that were selected for the campaign finance. They weren't arbitrary. There was much discussion of they should be raised. And of course, as elections go, depending on who's running, some people fundraise more than others. Some people had zero. So the expenditures and the campaign limits were based on the highlighted area. At the time, we looked at the 4 years of campaign fundraising from 2021 through 2024. And we found that on average, the particular expenditures were 6,000 for at large, for district was about 5,000. Now, of course, if you go from candidate to candidate, it does change, but our basic limits were adopted based on this chart. Now, we have not looked at what the campaign contributions were or expenditures for the most recent election. And part of that is because I'd rather stay naive about if there was any violations on the campaign finance ordinance. Because at the time of adoption, we talked about enforcement. We said that enforcement would come from individuals, basically like a code violation, it would be reported rather than us trying to find where the violations were. And so I haven't looked at the numbers for 2025. And I haven't received, to date, I haven't received any complaints about anybody violating any campaign finance restrictions. Next slide. And so this essentially is a summary of what the limits are. For mayor, it's 1,000 per person, and this is for city commission too, that an individual can donate. So me, myself, as an individual, I could donate 1,000 per candidate. Companies and political action committees are able to donate 2,500. And then it is during a 2-year contribution cycle. So for example, the election coming up in 2027, the contribution period would be starting this past January 1st, 2024. It will run through December 31st, 2027. So that would be your contribution limitation period. We, of course, had loan limits and repayment limits as well as expenditure limits. Again, we don't know if anybody went over from the most recent election, but from those that have had the election most recently, now would be the time to let us know, staff, what would you like to see different? What were lessons learned? So I'd open up the floor to you all.
My experience, and this is just my personal experience, it's, well, one, by individual or by couple or by family, but okay. I do think that we should still allow for people to, finance their own campaign. I realize not a lot of people can do it, but if you're like willing to say, hey, I'm not gonna be influenced by anyone, and I'd rather just pay for my own campaign, I think that should be an option. In terms of how much contributions person can make, I don't know that 1,000 or 500 is going to make a big difference because you have to spend quite a bit of money. I mean, kudos to those people who are able to do it on a small budget, but you got to work really hard. And even with just signs and stuff, I guess media, social media, but even social media costs. So, because you have to advertise, you have to pay advertising costs. So,
Right.
I'm thinking 500 is the difference between 500 and 1,000 is negligible.
Okay. Some of the, just thinking about back to some of the questions we got from candidates. One was, of course, the how much can I loan myself? So, loan limits for mayor at large, we set it at 50,000 just for the general election. And then for city commission, 25,000. Now, of course, we can raise those. Or another option too is if you want to base it on increases in CPI, right? So it would be increased based on whatever the increases in the CPI. We could do that as well, right? So 1,000 at the last election might be 1,200 this coming election in 2027, right? And so we could do it based on that. One good observation that I have seen is companies are being very cautious in how they contribute based on when their contract might be up for award or consideration. And so I've had a lot of companies reach out and say, hey, this is when my contract is coming before commission. am I within that contribution period where I cannot? Because right now it's 180 days from when it comes to commission, whether it's awarded or not. 180 days from there, they cannot contribute towards someone's campaign during that period. 181st day, they can. And so we've had a lot of vendors reach out to us, which is great. We appreciate them adhering to the rules and asking and verifying whether or not they're able to do so.
This is just my opinion. I don't speak for anybody else. Strictly my opinion. I don't believe we should, if someone wants to give someone $1, 500, 1,000, 2,000, that's coming from them. I don't think we should be able to tell someone or tell you how much you can donate to your friend, cousin, family, whoever that is running for office. Things are getting expensive, signs are getting expensive, social media, like my Commissioner Nurith said, things cost money. I mean, and I believe they're only going to get more expensive as the years come before us. So I think we need to come up with a number that I guess is fair, reasonable, and just, because if we start putting limits on campaign, then we're telling the person or the candidate, find a way to beat the system. Either you do things the right way, or you're going to find ways to go around. And I've always been told there's different ways to skin a cat. And I don't want myself or any other candidate to feel that they're going to have to beat the system later on, because we're putting such strict restrictions on the candidates that are here, that will run after us and after them. So I think we need to be fair about it. Now, what's fair? We got a lot of smart people in this room that will, I think, come to the right decision.
Well, I just ran a campaign, and I think the numbers are ridiculous. I don't see how anybody who's running against, let's say, an establishment can go out there and get 50 people to give you $1,000. It's very hard when you have people working against you to go out there and find the right amount of people to give donations. I mean, it's nothing. I agree with Nurith. You should be able to pay for your campaign if you want to. But if that's the case, you should be able to fundraise whatever way you want to, as long as you put it on the report. If you want to pay yourself, you want to loan yourself $100,000 and run a campaign, and you want to pay yourself $100,000 after, well, good for you. And if you don't want to fundraise and don't want to pay yourself back, that's also on anybody else. I think that's right.
I'm glad you brought that up, because this is a tangent, but it unfurled me when people would say, oh, I'm going to ask for donations to pay myself back. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, people gave you the money to use for your campaign to get yourself elected, not to pay yourself back. Like, that to me, I thought was so egregious. But that's another point.
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot of things that we can learn from it. When this first came to us, I don't ever remember that there was any wording in there that I saw that said that even though it's a 2-year cycle, if you're in a runoff, you can get donations from the same person again. I never found it. I looked, I didn't see it. I think we spoke about it, but I just never got back to you on it. So I mean, whatever the rules are, they have to be very clear and they have to be very transparent. Is this something that's going to happen? Like, I guess Austin, you said, has some type of limits, or I don't know what. Austin also pays their council $135,000 a year. So I guess there's good things in every city and there's bad things in every city. I also think Austin is very weird, so I don't want to be like Austin. You know, it's going to be very hard to have our staff track this. I mean, I don't agree with limits. I voted for them last time and I saw how hard it was. I can't run again. This isn't about me. This is about whoever's going to run in the future. And I do think that $1,000 is tough when you need to raise 50,000 for a campaign. Is it possible? Of course it is. Everything is possible. Can you win with less? I think there's one commissioner here who's done it, and everybody else here has spent a lot of money. I mean, we can go back and check, right? So I don't know where those numbers that came up are from or whose numbers they are, but I think every serious candidate who has ever at least made a runoff, if you go and check their finance, they've spent a lot of money. So money isn't everything in a campaign, but without it, you're not going to win. That's my 2 cents on it.
And since we're talking about limits, the caps for the general election were fine. The runoff was hard. Like that amount was hard. So we might consider, you're lucky because you didn't have to go through with this. So just an.
No, that's good to know because, you know, in drafting this, I've not run for office myself, and, you know, kudos to you all for having that heart for public service that way. But I myself don't know how much an election costs, right? So I heard something like a mail out might cost about $9,000 if you do it, you know, in a district, and with a runoff, I mean, 12,500 being your limit, you're almost there. So
No, it's in a district, it's anywhere between 3,500 to 4,000, depending on how many you throw out. But when you do 3, you're at the limit already.
Right.
That's what we spoke about.
So, but I think, you know, what we could consider is, you know, the 500 to 1,000 might not be that much of a change, but you could, as a commission, consider increasing the limits to where maybe per person, it could be 1,500, 2,000, 2,500. For PACs or companies, it could be, right now it's 2,500, you could do 5,000. And then with the runoffs, because I hear you, you can increase those limits as well. Maybe even maybe half of what the limit is for the expenditure. So if like a runoff, if it's for mayor, for example, if it's 100,000, runoff would be half of that because it's a shorter time period, right? So those are some options. Nothing is really set in stone until you give us direction, and then we can come back and give you either more information or proposed changes.
So, looking at this, and I think the reason that we're here, we created this, is to protect, hopefully for me at least, my reasoning for voting for this was, I'm constantly looking at trends. And the trend is, we have a lot of people, and we embrace growth. I embrace growth. I am pro-business. There's a lot of people moving here. Homes are being built. There are a lot of people that are moving in with really high paychecks and connections to a lot of money. And I just wanted to make sure that the average Brownsville resident that has the average Brownsville salary was going to be able to run for an office one day and have the same amount of fair chance from a financial standpoint than anyone else that might have a more connection to someone or themselves that could fund and have an unlimited spending amount. That being said, watching this last election and hearing from candidates, we should, and the reason I think we're at this work session is to listen, especially to the candidates to the left here, and go, you just ran, what would you do better? And in hearing what you're saying, I think that, yes, I think that the amount that you do for a runoff, I personally think that could be half of what the campaign costs. Because, for example, Commissioner Galansky, you ran an at-large race, and if your limit is 100,000, 50,000 for a runoff, I think would have been sufficient. Maybe, maybe not. You ran for that. Maybe, I don't know that. I'm saying you ran. Commissioner Cardenas, Commissioner De Leon, you ran. I don't know if 50,000 is the right number. It should be 60 or 65, but whatever that is, half of it might have been sufficient for a runoff. I don't know that because you were put in a different restriction than we were. And this is not, by the way, for me, just to be 100% transparent, this is not about the 2027 election. I have no problem looking at this, making amendments and adjustments, and up to the commission to vote on when that's adopted. Like I'm not here trying to change or look at campaign limits because of the 2027 election. I think it's more important for us to look at it as when and if we're not here, how do we protect the integrity of just people running for office in the city of Brownsville, giving its dynamics, because I really do believe in, I'm an underdog guy, right? Like I'm a coach. I love seeing people come from any walk of life and be able to sit in these seats. That for them to have that fighting chance and opportunity to do that as well. And whatever that it looks like, I am 100% listening to some of the comments and talking to some of you while you were in campaign in frustration. I do believe that the campaign limits should be higher. I do believe that a clear definition, like right now, this is the first time I see the 2-year contribution cycle. And so the 2-year contribution cycle for me reads January through December, right? So I don't know if the contribution cycles on top of, it's just food for thought for the commissioners, right? I don't know if the contribution cycles should be, yearly, 365 days, could be. It could be a mix of what the contribution limit is and what the contribution cycle is. Because I don't know that, right? And I also don't know from campaign reports, and it's important to bring it up and be transparent, when that expenditure takes place. Does that make sense? Like, if somebody writes in a treasurer, right, the moment that they do that and they start spending, is that part of that contribution cycle, or is it just for that yearly cycle? Because people utilize, like I'm speaking about myself. Like if I have a campaign account, correct, and I give donations right now, are those impacting my expenditure amount?
Yes.
And that's what I'm saying. So like, if I want to help an organization, a nonprofit, from my campaign, and I want to give a check, that goes currently to my 100,000 that I'm spending.
Right, right. And
From
No,
your
not personal
commissioner
account.
budget or?
No, me, my campaign budget.
Oh,
Like if I have a campaign account, not the commissioner, but if I do it from my personal, doesn't count, correct?
are you from your personal account?
Me, my personal bank account, not my campaign account, to a nonprofit that I want to donate money to.
That doesn't count towards this.
But it does if it's from my campaign account.
Correct.
Does that make sense? So let's say over the course of 4 years that I've been commissioner. And I give a little bit to this kid, a scholarship, and I give to this soccer league, and I donate to this other thing, and I donate to the fishing for kids. And then you accumulate that over 4 years, and you go, Commissioner Villarreal, you already spent 20 grand on your campaign because it came from your campaign expense. Does that make sense? And I think, I don't have an answer. I think that those are things for this commission to consider, what that looks like as well, right? Anyway, I mean, I have a lot of other comments, but the gist of it is we really need to take a look at this. And guidance, I really am looking to the left, right? Because you guys just ran campaigns and you've ran campaigns before, 2 of the 3 of you. This is 2 campaigns and one had restrictions and one did not have restrictions. And I think I'm hearing you that the restrictions are flawed.
I have a comment. I think that the limit should be 2,500 per person and 5,000 per companies or PACs. I also think that the limit should be higher in the runoffs. Instead of 10, it should be at least 15, but I would even say do 20 because you want the truth on the paper. And then the second part of it is it should be a yearly thing. It's very hard to keep track of what you've done and what you haven't done. You're not going to fundraise in your second year. Just nobody's going to give you money anyway, so don't worry about that. But I do think that it should be a limit. I mean, a yearly thing with what Commissioner Villarreal is saying, it's 100% true. You can be giving nonprofits money, or you can be giving other candidates money if you wanted to. So when you're doing those, they shouldn't come off of your limits. And going back to what Ms. Galansky's saying, Commissioner Galansky, if she wants to pay her campaign, let her pay her campaign, right? I don't have an issue with that either, but just don't limit everybody else on how to fundraise. We just got to find the middle ground where it's fair for everybody. I can't pay $120,000 for a campaign myself. And maybe for her, it wasn't that difficult or it wouldn't be that difficult. And in the future, somebody else can come in and say, you know what, I don't want to fundraise at all. I know that there's been people who ran with their own money, and that's honorable as well. And if you don't go get it back, that's even greater. But not everybody can do that. So let's just try to be fair. Again, I think a $2,500 instead of doing, oh, you're running right now and then you're going into a runoff. So let's split it and let's get family members to donate and let's just stop, right? Let's say instead of going out there and getting 4 people to donate from the same family, maybe if you put a $2,500 limit, maybe it'll come down. Maybe it won't. Maybe they'll each donate $2,500. I don't know. But I think you got to open it up for people to be able to fundraise. And if somebody believes in somebody, they should be allowed to take, I would say, whatever is given to them, but 2,500, I think is a decent number. This is a big city. It's got a big budget. You need the right people here, so don't limit who's going to run.
And one thing I did want to say too is I know there was a comment about, this is not because the 2027 election is coming up. My office had on intention of coming back with a report on this because we are cognizant that to protect the city, when you place limitations like this, I mean, you are infringing on someone's First Amendment right? So it's political speech. Like, I want to give this candidate $1,000. That's my First Amendment right. But the courts have said that you can place restrictions if it passes certain scrutiny, right? And this is strict scrutiny. And so looking at the most recent Austin case that went through the Fifth Circuit very recently, this year, when we look at restrictions and we look at, well, do we want to avoid either the actual action of corruption or the appearance, because appearance can be also limited as well. You want to protect the appearance of corruption. For like the 2-year contribution cycles, looking at how Austin did theirs, I would say the least restrictive way of accomplishing what we want would be saying, okay, well, we'll have yearly contribution cycles, right? So like my limitation on my First Amendment right would be, whether it's 1,000 or 2,500, it would be yearly. And that's less restrictive than saying I'm limited to this contribution during a 2-year period, right? So you always want to go with the least restrictive. And I think that would address that Now with the donations to nonprofits, you know, thinking about it now, I did see a lot of contributions when we looked at the last 4 years, not including this election, but we looked at the last 4 years to determine what were the expenditures and what were the contributions collected. I did see quite a bit of individuals donate to nonprofits. And at the time, I didn't think about it until you made that comment. Adding a waiver or an exception for those nonprofit donations, because we want to encourage that, right, from your campaign funds, I think should be added in to where it doesn't count towards your contribution or your expenditure limits. And that's, so I wouldn't say this is because of the 2027, right? It is, at the time, there was comments about let's not have it apply to this coming election, right? And that was from a commissioner who's no longer with us. But I think the stance is if you wait, then someone's election is going to be, or someone's campaign is going to be impacted, right? And so the commission at the time said, we're going to do it for this coming election. We're not going to wait, like have a grace period. If you, same thing with the 2027, someone's campaign is going to be affected, whether it's the 2027 one or the 2029 one. You might as well, lessons learned, you go through the process and you make those updates so that you can avoid having a constitutional challenge, right? So any kind of restriction that you put in place, you want to make sure that you're going to survive a constitutional challenge. And so by increasing the limits and by changing it from 2 year to 1 year, I think that gives us more defense to withstand a constitutional challenge.
So Mr. Trevino, I mean, I will say that you can obviously run a campaign with these limits. All three of us, at least, I believe, did it right. And so it can be done. But what happens in 12 years from now, or in 16, or in 25 years from now? We saw it with, I think the commission used to get paid $10 in 50s, or I don't know when it was. If you don't add the cost of living at least, or there has to be something on there, so you don't bring it back in 50 years from now, like, oh, look at these people, they were trying to run a campaign with $100,000. The numbers are going to get messier, but I do think it's important for the future. Because if this, what I've heard, is going to try to go to charter, let's get it right and not have them have to go out in the future and try to fix this.
So what I would like to propose, because I know we're not going to have an answer today, right? What I like to propose is running a survey for those candidates that most recently had an election and basically kind of gauge what their thoughts were, right? Because we have the benefit of, we have 3 commissioners that just ran through that election. We got your feedback today. But what about those candidates that did not? So I feel like we go do a survey of those individuals and then come back with maybe some recommendations based on what we're hearing today, and then also based on what we get back from the feedback on the survey. And it can be a quick process so that we can have something for you all in October.
So you're gonna go do you're gonna talk to the other candidates that ran against us, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I don't think that would be fair because one raises more money than the other. And you're pretty much telling that person, you know what, keep the limits or even decrease the limits because maybe one person or 2 people didn't have the funds to run a campaign like the 3 of us. With that being said, is the limits that we have right now, they were pretty tough. They were, by no means. And I feel sorry for my other 3 commissioners on the other side, and well, 3 and the mayor, because every year things go up. So that 4x8 and that 4x4 sign is not going to be the $4 or $5, $6 that we paid for it. It's probably going to be doubled by the next 2 years. So,
How'd you get it at $4?
well, $4 or whatever.
know where you get your
I'm
sign.
just saying, you know, it's going
wanna
to
buy 'em there.
be more expensive than what it is now. I don't have the numbers with me, so I'm just saying. But it's going to be harder. It is going to be harder, and whatever we do, we just need to make sure we be fair about it. Now, with that being said, I spoke to Commissioner Tino probably a couple of months ago, and he said something that I 100% agree with. Let's make it fair, but we also have to protect the integrity of this seat that we sit in. This seat is not for sale. Let's not put ourselves in a position that we have to sell this seat to some individual. Let's just make it fair. And I think we have a good working relationship, even my Nurith and Pedro, and also Mr. Brian Martinez that I've spoken to. It is hard. It's hard to go up to someone that I'm not used to, trust me. Hey, can you give me a campaign donation? Okay, I'm not that type of person. I don't go up to people and ask for money. But I've kind of had to learn that because I spent a lot of money out of my own pocket. And to my wife at home telling me, hey, you know, where's all this money going for a position that pays so little? And I said, but that's not the case. It's about helping people. And my seat is not for sale. By no means. So all I ask is that for the people that are running in the next 2 years or in the future, let's just be fair and make it fair for everybody. The limits that we ran, and I'm going to say it again, they were rough and they were tough. I felt like playing a football game that I can't even play sports anymore. But let's just be fair.
Okay, quick question. Would you be agreeable to what was announced earlier, 2,500 per person, 5,000 per pack or company? Would that be something that you think would be more fair?
I think it would be fair, but I think where you also have to make sure that your fare is on the total expenditure. The total expenditure of what you can do. When you go, I mean, most of your campaign, when you do a runoff, your runoff is basically, it's a month, it's a sprint. So everything just multiplies.
It's like running the campaign all over again.
It's like running the whole, exactly. It's like running the whole campaign over in 30 days. Oh, this time, which was a lot faster. I think when Commissioner Rafael, it was like 6 or 7 weeks once. But this time it was actually almost 30 days. And I don't know if Ms. Galansky ran into the same thing I did, that it was week 3 and I'm like, uh-oh, I can't do anything anymore. I'm out. I'm tapped out. Like, I can't spend anymore. So all I could do was walk. At the end, I didn't even have push cards left. So it's difficult when the limit is tighter on the runoff. I think we should look into that limit as well. And I think you should also consider what was mentioned about using your own money on it. I mean, look into those things, but I do think we should adjust the runoff part. I don't think it should be a 2-year. I think a 1 year is a lot better. And I don't think if you're in a runoff, you should be allowed to go get more money. It should be a yearly thing. And if you spend it, you spend it.
So would you be okay? I'm just listening to everybody's comment. Just for notes, for Will. And then, and then you come back to everybody
Okay.
and see, is
Right.
this, there's no motion here, it's a work session.
Sure, yeah.
But it's like, so 2,500 per person, 5,000 per pack company. That's number 1. Number 2, 1 year contribution cycles. Number 3, expenditure limits. If it's 100,000 for mayor at large, 50% of that is 50,000 for the runoff. If it's 50,000 expenditure limits for district commissioner, it's $25,000 for the runoff. I'm making notes because if you say no, it's higher, okay, what is it? Like, just to give Will something to draft up, right? These are the things I've been hearing, right?
Ms. Galansky, what do you think on that?
So 100,000 for a citywide campaign was reasonable. I was able to go under that. but for the runoff, it was 25,000 for me,
Are
and
you-
that was hard.
Are you okay with 50,000? Like
But
50%?
at the same time, I'm appreciative that I didn't have to spend 50,000, you know, like.
Yeah,
so-
but I'm
so-
just saying for the limit, meaning
Yeah.
for the
we
limit
could
being
reach,
50%.
10,000 more, I think.
I agree, and I think on the 10,000 for the runoff, if you do 15, you're good. It's only 5,000 more, but it really is, it makes a huge difference. It's 1 week, and that's what I'm going off of. It's basically a week. I think that number is a little more reasonable. And if you go too high, well, let's just take off the limits, right? If we're gonna go limits real high on everything, let's just take off the limits, which I would have no issue with. But I think if you keep it a little lower, you allow more people to run as well and compete.
Do you think then, mayor at large, 100,000, 35,000 for the runoff? Commission district, 50,000, for the, for 50,000 for the expenditure limit and 20,000 for the runoff? Or 15? What do you think?
I would say 15 for the district. I can't speak to the at-large or the mayor race. I don't know how much it would be. But for the commissioner?
Do you think adding 10,000, Commissioner Galante, to 35, would that be adequate? And then adding 5 to the district?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez, thoughts? I mean, just for notes right now. Obviously, we're not voting on anything, but just for him to start drafting.
Yeah, but I think it's important so Will can bring something back.
And I have to say, the capping at how much you can spend was great. Like, that was my favorite part, because especially if you're new to this, there's so much noise, there's so many, you're being pulled by so many directions. Oh, I'll offer you these services and I can add this to your campaign. Or, oh, can you donate money so that my grandchild can go to such and such chess tournament and wherever? And I had the perfect excuse. I'm sorry, like, but I'm really
I'm
tight to
limited.
do it. So I appreciate it for that.
I agree.
The other thing I want to add is, okay, so I'm not clear on this one. So if companies can give you up to $2,500, there's a lot of vendors to the city that like to pray or hang around. But there was that rule that if you had a contract coming up, you couldn't, the company couldn't donate to the campaign. But then, okay, so then does that mean that as soon as you're elected, then they can't, up until year 3 or
So-
the year before, they can't?
So I would, in the final notes, because I was listening, I think this might answer it. So, I think that my personal opinion to that, and I don't know how you guys feel, is, we have that quiet period, right, where we cannot talk to anyone.
Right.
I
There
think
is
that
a gag period.
right? A gag period. I think that contributions should not be made during the gag period. But I personally don't think that we even know sometimes on consent who the city hired to do a little ditch over here, and then they're 6 months from not being able to, and then if they come and give us a check and we didn't know.
But
'Cause
they
there's-
know,
there's-
they're notified, right, Will, when the contract?
Right, so.
I get it, but it's everybody that applied, not just who got awarded. So what ends up happening is you have multiple applicants for multiple things happening throughout the city. And you've got potentially everyone that could contribute to a campaign in a 180-day period after the fact, even if they did not get awarded, that technically cannot donate to candidates. But, correct. No. Like if, for example, right now they're, whatever, redoing X, the thing, a ditch. And you have in that ditch 8 people who applied for that contract. Those 8 people, after even being awarded, in the gag period, they can't donate. City says, we award this company. The other 7 plus that company have to wait 180 days to contribute, even the ones that did not get awarded.
And if they go out and go for another one,
And if they go for another one 4 months from now, and they did not get awarded that one, they cannot donate 180 days after that application. And so what ends up happening is either A, we don't know, sometimes we don't know, they know, but we don't know. And I'm sure candidates that are brand new, less have an idea. And then you say, this candidate is in violation, because they received a check from a company that was in a consent agenda item to do a ditch somewhere that was going through Public Works. That was just a consent because it's in their budget to do it. And we had no idea that even that list of applicants, or they're on the cycle. Does that make sense? Like, they're on the cycle, so technically we don't know when they're doing a project around town. It just, for me, again, food for thought, gag periods, right? And I would consider highly, like, who's on the cycle too. Like, what are their limitations if they wanted to support a candidate, not just any candidate that's running.
So
Would you say-
while I like that whole gag period, but it's hard to enforce, like you said, if you make it maybe just a nominal sum, like if you're gonna $500 or $1,000, I mean, I think it's hard to say that someone is selling themselves for $500 or $1,000. You might be a little bit feel indebted, but I don't think it's hard, like for 500 or 1,000.
So rather than maybe having a 6-month period, because right now that's a good point, because we do have a gag period, and it is in the RFP that during, yes, it's included in there that they can't speak to commission. They have to go to their procurement director or officer. But in the ordinance, we didn't have anything in place as far as before they start the process, right? It's from when it's awarded or not awarded, 180 days after. So maybe what I'm hearing, if I'm listening correctly, is that you would rather it be at the point where they start, RFP is out, there's the gag period. And maybe instead of being 180 days after it's awarded, maybe 30 days.
Yeah, I think
Right.
that sounds better.
I think that sounds right. Like, meaning I submitted an application to the city, so therefore there's a no contact period.
Now, I
Someone-
think the gag order does work. I mean, when we've had issues with like trash pickup, and I knew that they were going out for contracts, I would call Mr. Garcia and ask him to call them. I wouldn't even call them about picking up trash. Because I didn't want to, I know that they don't probably want to take a call either. They're not going to put, well, what ended up being a 7-year contract on the line for picking up trash. So I think I think the gag does work. At least that's what I've felt, not only from me to them, but if I don't know, they'll make sure they let you know, hey, you know what, we can't speak right now, so.
Right, yeah, and a lot of them are cognizant. They do reach out to our procurement director, myself, and they'll ask us, are we in that gag period still, et cetera, so.
I think a 30-day is fair.
Okay.
And I don't know. That's just, I don't know what you think.
I have one more comment on, I mean, it doesn't say it on here, but we also had the signs. I don't know if it's on there, but since we're getting close to one, we have the signs. I do think the 4 signs at the library are great. I loved it. It was a lot cleaner. I liked it. What I didn't like is I put them up the day before election, they took them down. That's what I didn't like. And what I don't like was if we have a rule that says no trailers, you have to really go and get it. Because after I finished my campaign, after a runoff, somebody who didn't even make the runoff, their signs were still up on a billboards. I mean, not the billboards, the truck, the trailers. It got removed by the wind. So if we're gonna do that, that's another thing. Whatever you do, I mean, you really have to just make sure that we're gonna be able to enforce it. If not, don't put it on there, because there's people who don't wanna go outside the rules. So I didn't go put a trailer up because I was a city commissioner. I knew I couldn't because we had the conversations, but there was many of them out in the city and I really didn't see anything happen.
Right.
That's a big
I
issue.
think
that I
what's
had.
tricky about the trailers is that if the trailer's parked in a surfaced lot, then the trailer has a right to be there, right?
No, it was on
and then
grass.
If it was grass, that should have been.
Yeah, it was on grass. I mean, the one I'm speaking about 1 or 2 of them that I remember because I'd see them every day. So it's just, if we're gonna do that and we're gonna send a letter and it's gonna take 10 days that they're gonna be able to take it out, if you put it up the day of early voting, That's enough. If you move it around every 9 days, well, technically, it's a new position. And usually people who have trailers have trucks to move them. So it's just important for us to really figure out how we're gonna take care of that, or what the ordinance is gonna say, or how it's really gonna be enforced. Because if not, it's just there for show, and it really doesn't make a difference.
And my 2 cents also to the point that's not on this, but it's still campaign limits. It seemed like this election, the perimeter got so much smaller from where you can campaign from in the public library.
Oh, that's
Like-
terrible. It was really bad.
Like literally there were people right outside the door and it was very awkward because the campaign, the cannot campaign after this used to be in the front of the libraries, in the exits. You'd have to be on the street, actually on the sidewalks. Now people can literally be in the parking lot with signs and people there. with
No,
lawn
no,
chairs
no.
and their
There was,
umbrellas.
they had us like cattle. There was fencing and you couldn't go past the fencing. And where you're standing, nobody even sees you. So if you're gonna do that, just to limit, they wouldn't let anybody be on the sidewalks. You had to be inside of a little,
Designated area.
yes.
we had a
and
designated
I don't know,
area.
I don't know if Commissioner Galansky, because she went out there a couple of times and I saw her out there. It's like you're way outside. Nobody can really see you. It was real uncomfortable. I don't know what she thinks.
But on the other, remember when Erasmo was still alive, he would like get out on Central Boulevard and like with his signs, that was crazy. But that 4 limit signs, no, because I did not order any, I just ordered the yard signs and the big signs.
Ma'am, that's your fault.
But but then that's the thing though, if you're gonna limit the size of the campaign signs that you can, then what the heck is going on right now with all these county races, sorry? And their way of getting around it is by putting 2 of them side by side. So it's kind of,
Yeah, the hard thing is our things can't do anything to theirs.
Right, because those are in private properties.
Only on city property,
Yeah.
which would be the library.
but wasn't the goal for doing that also part of like beautifying the city so that it doesn't look way too? And then this whole thing, oh, my opponent, he still has my signs. People think that they're mine because it has my picture, but he hasn't picked them up. So are we finding them?
Well, we will look into it, but yes, so the city secretary's office did a really, really good job of educating and having, candidate, I guess I want to say forums, but candidate instructional.
We had multiple candidate orientations, multiple,
Right.
given the new ordinance. Code enforcement did pick up many signs on the right of way. When it's on private property, it gets more tricky because we have to notify the property owner to take it off, or else they're gonna say you're trespassing. So it gets really tricky, but I mean, I would love to report on the number of signs we picked up because that was a big enforcement person. But if there's still something out there, please let us know, but we're letting the private property owner, who sometimes that's on private fences, know that they have to take it off.
So yeah, I think that's a comment that we also had, because I heard at one point we were gonna go try to enforce even yard signs on properties, and some they had to be removed because the election was over. See, that for me, that's a real hard one. That is, I believe, like completely just stomping on their freedom of speech. I mean, are you gonna go get the ones that say faith and hope and my student goes to this and love and I mean, there's so many signs out there. That's real hard what you can do and not do, right? Are you
Right.
gonna remove the Notre Dame ones like the mayor did after they lost this weekend? So it's I had to throw a little jab. So I mean, but that's a tough one, but I believe that Ms. Galansky's talking about a couple of them, they're probably on private property.
Right.
That's a little harder, right?
Right. So that would be, what I would recommend then is, of course, this was on campaign finance. I think we can come do some research. The state legislature just passed some bills where we can be more, stronger enforcement for bandit signs. And so we can come back with something a little bit more substantive at the next workshop.
Thank you.
But I think I've had
I
quite a
think
bit of
you got a
information,
good-
so I can.
Good info, and then take into consideration what Commissioner Cardenas said about maybe every election cycle, not every year, adding the
The CPI.
CPI.
Okay.
So can I ask for clarification? You said, so if you're gonna do it the contribution cycle 1 year, does that mean that, if you didn't get it in this year, then you can't double the amount next year? Or can it be like,
Correct. It would be like if you didn't do it this year.
then you lost out that?
Yeah, no, I
money?
don't think you can double. I don't think that would.
Yeah,
Well,
that,
it
that,
won't carry over.
yeah, it wouldn't carry
It
over.
wouldn't carry over. It would just be, people's, like, again, you can start campaigning. You can, have people donate to you in random times, right? Throughout the years.
Right.
Then my suggestion in that respect is if you do it, say like 1,000, it can be cumulative, but no more than. So if you can say like, if you do $5,000 per person or per company, then, or sorry, because we're gonna do in 4 years, then you can either do 1,000 a year or 4,000 lump sum for a 4-year period.
You have a point on what if somebody starts campaigning very late, right? But, I think it's also, imagine if it were 5 and you can go get 20,000, I think that's a lot of money. Well, I've never seen a donation for 20,000.
That's why you put the cap.
Oh, like you can
No
do.
more than, say, 5,000.
Oh.
Say they're one entity, but if you collect it over 5 years or 4 years, it's like,
I think it's gonna get real sloppy and real difficult to try to follow though. Because they're gonna have to go back and check all 4 years and it's gonna be a little difficult. That's what I think. I think if you just cut it per year, it's real easy to look at the numbers and say, this donated this year and they're good.
Well, thank you so much for the feedback. And, I am available outside of the work session if you have any additional feedback that comes to you. I know sometimes you're put on the spot, so I'd be happy to chat with anybody afterwards.
I just want to thank the staff and the commission for allowing us to have a discussion about this and for all of us to put input. I think we all have the same intention, but thank you all for being able to have that opportunity.
One last thing, I also want to just make sure Commissioner Villarreal said, this isn't something that I believe people running or doing it because of that. We did say when we passed it, they would come back and visit it. So I think it actually took us a little longer to get here, but I'm glad that we're here checking it right now.
Right. So yes, we had talked about bringing it back and looking at the electioneering and the campaign finance to see what needed to change from lessons learned. And then
Same thing
more
with the
so-
billboards, right?
Sorry?
Same thing with the billboards. We said we'd come back and check.
Correct. And then same thing with, the Austin case was just decided earlier this year, so it was now prudent to bring it forward.
Who's the mayor pro tem?
Commissioner Macias, she's not here, so the deputy
Who's
mayor
the
pro tem is Martinez.
You wanna
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
move to adjourn?
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You're adjourned.
The
Thank you.
time is 1:08 PM.